Hello, everyone. Long time no speak. It has been forever. That's what it feels like. I just hope that you all have been and remain in good spirits. It is so good to be talking to you all right now. I really, really miss this podcast. Oh my gosh. And it's just so crazy because I was actually drafting up another episode about to just come on here, pick up where I left off. And then I thought to myself, like, Tia, you have been pretty inconsistent here, right? Like your listeners should know why that is. So I thought today would be a really good day to reintroduce myself, reintroduce this podcast, chat a little bit about my distance from the podcast, what led to those inconsistencies, and what's to come in the future. And then maybe we can kind of go from there. I feel like it's only right. So let's get straight to it. So, for those who are new here, hello and welcome. And to those who frequent this podcast, welcome back. Thank you all for being here, as always. My name is Tia, and I am the host of the Thread of Thoughts podcast. Now, the title of this podcast is exactly what it sounds like, right? A continuous thread of my thoughts, kind of like a text message thread. That's how I like to look at it. It truly is a no niche, open format kind of podcast that we have situation going on here. And I always like to say that this podcast is rooted in my personal experiences, lessons, perspectives. And there are days where I may provide advice or I may just share my honest opinions on random topics at that time. I may feel prompted to share a recent experience or a life lesson. Some topics are deep, some topics are light. I think I do a pretty good job at balancing the two. And some days I have it all together and some days I just don't. You never really know. And the topics will definitely vary and the discussions will vary. And that's what keeps it fun. I feel like I went a lot more in depth about why I started a podcast in my episode titled What Having a Podcast is Really Like, but I'll keep this explanation a little bit brief. So, I created this podcast to be a safe space and a creative outlet for myself. And I just knew that I needed somewhere to place my energy and my passion for writing and talking about my experiences and interests pretty much at my own speed and comfortably. And I also created this podcast as a space where I can take up space. I don't have to limit myself or shrink myself here. And it keeps me grounded, it keeps me whole, and I can be myself here, which is extremely, extremely important to me. And the more I podcast, the more I learn about myself and the more I learn about you guys as well, which actually leads to my next point. So now for you all listening, you may gain insights from this podcast and find something that you can take away. You may find it relatable in a space where you can feel seen and not alone in certain situations. Or you may just simply find it to be entertaining. Either way, I'm happy you're here. And I hope that you find that I can be the friend in your ear during your evening walks or your morning commutes or when you're cooking dinner, right? And I just really hope that this podcast could be something for you all to look forward to as well. Now, all right, let's address the elephant in the room. Let's address the elephant in the room, right? Let's talk about this hiatus. Why was I gone for so long, right? So let's run it all back and start from the beginning. When I first began this podcast, I was releasing weekly, and then I noticed things begin to shift in my personal life. And then I decided to move to a bi-weekly releasing schedule. Then, unfortunately, the bi-weekly schedule became a little bit too difficult to maintain. So then I just moved to monthly. And from there, it's kind of been every 2 to 3 months when I can. And there was no real consistency. The true inconsistency began last year in 2024. I don't know what was in the air in 2024, but 2024 was just not it. It was not it. It was a very, very heavy year. And I feel like 2024 was the year where I just felt the weight of everything. I began to feel the weight of my job, the weight of grad school. Some of my friendships and relationships got a little rocky. My dating life kind of came and went. And I just remember being in this continuous state of sadness and heavy depression. And these heavy negative emotions began to impact how I show up in my relationships, how I show up to my work, my crafts, and just the world, period. I was truly in a freeze, y'all. Like I was just in this freeze. And when I think about it, I get a little bit emotional because I just felt so like, let me move on. But I just felt really low last year. And it made me really insecure in showing up for my podcast, to where I eventually began to even question my ability to continue podcasting and coming back to the podcast. And I'm also not saying this for you all to feel sorry for me or anything like that. I'm just catching y'all up, okay? And then also grad school, right? Like, grad school took up a lot more time than I imagined. And I know some of you all listening are probably like, well, Tia, what did you expect? It's literally grad school. And truthfully, I don't know what I expected. I don't. My school, though, did a wonderful job emphasizing the dedication that is required to go through with the degree program, right? It was really like a part-time job. But what I didn't expect was to lack presence and to feel an immense amount of guilt in my day-to-day life. So let me expand on that as well. It became increasingly difficult to do anything outside of schoolwork. Schoolwork was always at the center of my mind, and it got to a point where my thinking process was, it was just so focused on school. Like, let me give you guys an example. So if I was thinking about picking up another hobby, it was like, no, that time could be towards your schoolwork. If it was a family movie night, it's like, no, you should be studying. If I was thinking about drafting up another podcast episode, it was like, no, you need to be drafting that essay. You know, it's like, oh, are you thinking about attending an event with your friend? You really need to attend that class webinar. You know, it just, I felt guilty for doing anything that was not schoolwork. But now that I'm finally done, I have my evenings back. I have my weekends back. I can be a lot more present and plug into and nurture what I'm passionate about without the feeling of guilt surrounding me. It's like I can finally come up for air. So let me just take that in for a moment because that was a tough journey. Like, oh my gosh, the tests I had to take, the studying I had to do, the 2-hour calls with my professors. It was, oh my gosh, but I got through it. Anyways, last year really did his big one. And I remain eternally grateful for being able to get through and experience all of 2024, the ups and the downs. But man, oh my goodness. Now, to conclude this episode, and I realized that I'm actually approaching the end of this episode a lot faster than I thought I would. And I think that's because I'm trying not to spill so much solely in this reintroduction episode. I think that certain conversations and discussions need to be saved for certain episodes that I have planned and in mind. So I'm trying not to say too much. But to conclude this episode, I figured I would discuss the future of this podcast. So as of right now, I don't have a major relaunch plan or roadmap or anything like that. And I definitely don't want to make any promises that I cannot keep. But I do care for this podcast and this space. And I want us to consider this a soft return, allowing room to just explore and evolve and see where things go. But I would definitely love to hear what you all are interested in hearing on this podcast. Like, what did you all miss? What do you all want more of? What are you all curious about? So let me know. And that is all that I have for you guys today. I know you guys are probably like, well, that was a very quick episode, but I figured I'd at least come on here and acknowledge the fact that I've been off the podcast for months instead of just getting back into regular flow and routine. So anyways, thank you all so much for listening. As always, I truly appreciate you all being here and supporting this podcast. It never goes unnoticed. Make sure you follow, listen, and subscribe to the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and because I almost forgot, and I should have said this earlier, and YouTube. Okay. The Thread of Thoughts podcast is now on YouTube, so definitely make sure you subscribe there. It's audio only, but it's still available on YouTube. And also be sure to follow the podcast Instagram at Thread of Thoughts Pod, and we'll talk soon.